Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, and in this video we're going to revise the Jainism philosophy. So Jainism basically is an atheist school. Atheist meaning that they do not believe in the existence of God. They're also heterodox in the sense that they do not claim Vedas to be infallible. They deny the infallibility of the Vedas. Uh, they are they believe in plurality because of the theory of Anekantavad. Then they are also realist and relativistic pluralism. These are the basic keywords of Jainism. So, Anekantva, this is their metaphysics. So their metaphysics basically concerns with the theory of manyness of reality, which means that there are many realities. There is not just one reality, uh, whereas there are innumerable number of material and spiritual realities. This can be summed up by one of these sentences, which is called the Utpadravyam Dharuvyam Samyuktam Sat. Sat means reality. Utpad Dravyam means change and decay. Change and decay of the substance, their combination is the only reality. So they do not believe in just one reality. So change and decay. Basically, these are the facets of realities. These are not just one reality. These are different realities, which can be perceived from one point of view. So, what basically is reality? Reality is complex. It's multifaceted. It's dynamic. That means it keeps on changing. It's dualistic. It's relational. It's conditional, and then it's pluralistic. So the Jaina metaphysics of Anikantavad basically stemmed from their uh, epi- epistemology, which is called the Syadvad. So Syadvad is basically a theory of relativity of knowledge. So here we are going to judge statements. So, for example, if a statement is called a Dutniti, it means it's a bad judgment because they're claiming it as absolute. According to Jainas, nothing can be claimed as absolute by ordinary human beings. Naya is when you're trying to claim it neither as relative nor as absolute. So you're without claiming it. So a Naya can be turned into a Pramana. Pramana, that is the valid source of knowledge when you prefix it with Syad. Syad is so the literal meaning of Syad is from this frame of reference point of view, relatively, or from this perspective. So, according to Jainas, ordinary beings can know only partial truths, which basically means is that the Jainas are accepting one's inability to know the absolute truth. The absolute truth can only be known by the omniscient one, and we human beings are basically limited by our capabilities. And Jainas are basically recognizing the fact that we are limited beings, we cannot know it all, and the one who knows it all is an omniscient being, and obviously we're not that. The same reality can be understood in different ways from different perspectives. So they have given this analogy of six blind men and an elephant. So you see, all of them perceive the different body parts of an element, and they claim it as the absolute truth. Whereas we could say that it's a Duduniti because they're saying it to be absolute. All of them are truths in the relative sense, but not in the absolute sense. Only the omniscient one can know the absolute truth. So they've also given a seven-factor categorization of judgments. It's a conditional and relative character of knowledge. So there are seven types of judgments basically: Syad Asti, Syad Nasti, Syad Asti Nasti, Syad Avyaktam, which means it is indescribable. So it basically means that incompatible attributes cannot be ascribed on the same object at the same time. Then there is Syad Asti Avyaktam, Syad Nasti Avyaktam, and Syad Asti Nasti Avyaktam. So basically 1 plus 4, 2 plus 4, and 3 plus 4. So Syad Asti is this is a jug. Jug is not black. Syad Asnasti is that we just combine 1 plus 2, that this is a jug and the jug is not black. Syad Avyaktam. So, for example, you can say that it's a clay jug. So, when the clay is wet, it is a different color, whereas when the when the clay has dried up, there's a different color which comes up to the jug. So, you cannot comprehensively claim what is the color of the jug, so it's indescribable. So, different schools and different other thoughts of philosophy have basically criticized Anikantvad and Syadvad. So, basically, they have criticized Jaina metaphysics, whereby they are claiming that there are many realities and there are 7 kinds of judgments. So, the first criticism is that Jainas self contradict while asserting no theory is above Anikantavad. So, if you're saying that there is no theory, if you're saying that only the absolute truth can be known by omniscient one, then how can the limited beings, Jainas are also limited beings, these are also human beings, how can they conclusively say that there is no theory above Anekantvad? It's just not possible. It's self-contradictory. Syadvad is also self-contradictory because different thoughts have taken Syad in the literal sense, that is, they have taken it as probability, Syad as shayad. Yeah, शायद है शायद हो सकता है यार ये भी हो. So if you take shad as a probability, then you cannot ascribe contradictory attributes on the same object at the same time. It is just like you're ascribing permanence and momentariness on the same object that very time, or you can say light and darkness are existing together. It's just not possible. If all truths are partial, Shadvad also becomes partially false. So this leads to skepticism. Theory of relativism presupposes the hypothesis of the absolute. So if you're saying that if there's something relative, then you are actually conceding to the argument that there is something absolute which already exists. That is why you're claiming that human beings can know the limited truth or the partial truth. The last 3 steps basically about the avyaktam, right? These are superfluous and redundant. They don't actually make any sense according to the critics. The first 4 are actually taken from Chatushkoti, which is not a Jain invention, because Chatushkoti is also accepted by Buddhists and Vedantas. There's no attempt being made to synthesize these partial viewpoints into an organic whole. And we must say that reality is not a mathematical sum of partial viewpoints, because these 7 judgments are partial viewpoints only, and Jain has also accepted that ordinary beings can know only partial truths. So then how do we get to know about the reality? Also, Jainas say that Keval Gyan is the ultimate truth. So how can somebody who's not an omniscient being know about Keval Gyan, right? So what is Jaina's defense in this matter? Jaina say that Syad is not doubt. It means relatively. So they are asserting their position as Syad should not be taken in the literal sense. It just means relatively, or from this point of view, or this frame of reference. No person can be a thorough skeptic, as skepticism itself is a self-contradictory doctrine. This is what argument is presented by the Jainas. Reality is infinitely complex. Except for the omniscient ones, nobody can have access to absolute truth. Samantra Bhadra, who is one of the later Jain monks, says that when analyzed from a particular point of view, knowledge is definitely possible, and that too without any doubt. Jainas never say that ascribing opposing attributes upon same substance at the same time. We have already read about the 4th Saptabhanginaya. So Jaina defend that they're not saying that we should ascribe opposing attributes upon the same substance. They only advocate for predicating different kinds of attributes from different perspectives. So they're just trying to be more tolerant, and accommodative. So they are basically, you know, accepting different worldviews. Jainas, in their attempt to bring forth the theory of identity in difference, but they end up with identity plus difference. So this is a major flaw. Jainas do not attempt to maintain difference between the empirical and the transcendental knowledge, whereas the Advait Vedantins analyze reality from both perspectives and try to establish an organic relation between the realities and knowledge in different levels. So in the empirical level as well as the transcendental level, which is not the case with the Jainas, because they're trying to organically synthesize reality or give a difference between empirical and transcendental knowledge. Then comes Dravya, or the theory of substance. Dravya in Jaina philosophy is also like known as substance. There are two types of substances. First is anastikaya, second is astikaya. Astikayas are the ones which have extension, anastikayas have no extension. The anastikayas, there's only one anastikaya drav, which is called kal or time. There are two types of time. First is paramarthik, then is vyavaharik. Paramarthik is the continuous one and vyavaharik is the empirical one. So empirical means it has a beginning as well as the end, whereas paramarthik is, as I say, continuous. Then going to the astikaya dravs, which have extension. There are two types of astikaya dravs. One is ajiv, the other is jeev. Jeev, basically the essence of this jeev is consciousness. There are two types of jivas. First is thavar, then there is tras. Thavar, you can say, like plants, they are immobile. Tras are mobile. So there are 2-degree consciousness elements, 3-degree, 4-degree and 5-degree. Going to the ajivas are the ones which lack consciousness. So they are 4 basically: dharma, adharma, akash, pudgal. Dharma is the principle of motion, adharma is the principle of rest. Then there is this akash, which is basically referenced in order to determine the space element. Then there is pudgal, or I would say matter. It is further divided into 2, which is anu, which is atom, and sanghat, which is combination. So the essential characteristics are called the gunas. The accidental ones are called the paryayas. Accidental modes are paryayas. So the accidental ones can be desire, volition, pleasure, pain. So there's this line: guna paryayavad dravyam. Guna, essential qualities; paryaya are the accidental qualities; dravyam, the substances. So a substance has both the essential qualities as well as the accidental qualities. This is what makes Jaina philosophy as pluralistic. So what is ultimately real? This is the question which has been the point of contention in every major philosophy. So from the pluralistic point of view, Jainas accept the independent reality of all entities in the world. So every entity in this world is independently real. Every entity is permanent when analyzed from the perspective of guna, and changing from the perspective of paryayas. Both change and permanence constitute the nature of reality. From the realistic point of view, as I told about guna paryayavad dravyam, in the notion of substance, accepting differences between the qualities and the entities which possess qualities. So they are basically conceding to accept the difference between the dharma, which is the qualities, and the dharmi, which is the entity which possesses these qualities. Therefore Jainism can be said to be realistic as well as relativistic pluralism. They criticize Vedantins for claiming permanence alone is real, whereas Buddhists claim that change is real and permanence is an illusion. So, according to Jainas, both are commenting the fallacy of exclusive predication. So, they're basically just accepting only one reality or overemphasizing on only one aspect of reality. Jainas adopt a philosophical mean between nihilism and absolutism. So here you can see they're using absolutism or permanence alone is real, and here this nihilism, change is real and permanence is an illusion by the Buddhist. So what is jiva? Jiva, as I told you earlier, is an astikaya and conscious substance. So it means it has an extension and it also possesses consciousness. It is essentially same as Atman of Nyaya Visheshika and Purusha of Sankhya. So the jiva basically are qualitatively alike but quantitatively different. So there can be number of jivas, but essentially they're the same. They have the same essence of extension and consciousness. So consciousness is the real essence of the jivas. Every soul possesses it. The degree of consciousness may vary. It depends upon the obstacles of karma. Consciousness is present in dormant forms in the lower souls, inhabiting material elements. So in its real stage, a jiva has infinite knowledge, infinite bliss, infinite faith, infinite power. This is called Ananta Chatushtya. Jiva is the knower, doer, as well as the enjoyer. It is formless and coextensive with the body that illuminates it. So this is contrary to the Charvaka's position, which claims that the soul is identical with the body and the soul cannot exist without the body. But this thing, you can say, Charvaks basically they just reject soul because you cannot perceive it, right? But here you can say that this very thing, the coextensive with the body, this very phrase only matches with Charvaka, whereby the De Atmavad, which says that the soul is identical with the body, it is somewhat similar, not essentially, because they have categorically rejected it, but you can say this phrase can be somewhat similar. So for the Jainas, soul is the organizer of the body. It is the efficient cause and matter is the material cause. Coming back to Pudgal. Pudgal, as we have seen, is the Astikaya, a jiva. So it is devoid of consciousness. There is no consciousness in Pudgal. There are two, as we have read earlier, Anu and Sanghat. Anu is the smallest indivisible part, or you can say like atom in science. Then this is Sanghat, two or more atoms combined to form Sanghat. For example, the human body, the objects of nature, mind, speech, body are products of matter. So there are four essential qualities of Dravya, which are touch, taste, smell, and color. Sound, light, darkness, shadow, shape are produced by accidental modification of sound, so it is not an original quality. So dharma and adharma, as I told you earlier, is the principle of motion, and adharma is the principle of rest. They are both devoid of consciousness, as they are both ajiva padarth. Ajiva pudgal. Padarth is something which would come in Nyaya Visheshika. Dharma is the principle or the medium of motion. It's an auxiliary condition. It is not. It does not initiate motion itself. It is just a condition which facilitates motion. Adharma is the principle of rest. Both pervade the entire Lokakash and are formless and non-moving. So Akash, this is also one of the Pudgals. It is extended unconscious substance. So for explaining the, it is basically referenced for explaining the existence of things. It is the locus for extended substances to animate themselves. It is eternal, it is all pervading, this is formless, imperceptible, accommodate all existing substances. So space or akash basically is known through inference. It cannot be known through perception directly, no. So that's why it is known through inference. So kal, as I told you earlier, is the only anastikaya drav. It does not exist in space. It is divisible, infinite, uh, inferred and not perceived, because you cannot perceive a kal, you cannot perceive time. So as we read earlier, there are two types of kal, which are paramarthik and vyavaharik. Paramarthik is real, continuous, formless and eternal, whereas vyavaharik is empirical. It has a beginning and an end, it has its limits, and it is divisible. So now coming to bondage and liberation. So basically the ultimate aim of Jain philosophy is the the liberation from bondage. Liberation basically for Jainas is complete cessation of uh, the cycle of birth and death, and the complete cessation of sufferings. So for Jainas, they say that the bondage occurs because of a jiva's association with kasayas. So these are basically uh, passions and desires which get accumulated and then eventually lead to the bondage of the jiva. So for example, you see, this is a pure soul. So pure soul has Anant Chatushtaya, as we have read earlier. Anant Chatushtaya is, it has infinite knowledge, infinite uh, belief, infinite bliss, power and faith. So these karma particles, due to kasayas, they are very sticky in nature. They stick to the pure soul and lead it into oblivion, and it's like they have eclipsed the pure nature of soul. This influx of karma particles is called ashrav. This ashrav is the one which eventually leads to bondage. So the first root cause of this bondage is ignorance. It is because of ignorance that we identify with passion or karma particles, and then eventually fall into the pit of bondage, right? So these bondages are also defined by Jainas as there are two types of bondage. First is the bhavabandh and dravyabandh. So dravya, from the word itself you can say it is material bondage. So you're bonded to substances, you're bonded to its effect, whereas bhavabandh is the internal bondage, or the bondage due to soul's bad disposition. These bad dispositions can be evil intention, cruel thought, passionate desire. So it's basically psychic. So as I told you earlier, the influx of these karma particles is called ashrava, and subsequent mingling of these with the true nature of soul is called the which eventually leads to bondage. So if there is bondage, there might also be a way to get liberated, right? So liberation occurs when jeev gets completely separated from pudgals in two steps. So it's a two-step process. First is called samvara, the second is Nirjara. So Samvara is totally the stoppage of Ashraf. So you're basically stopping the influx of these karma particles. Then in Nirjara you are shedding the already accumulated karmic matter from the soul. So the first step is you're not letting the influx of new karma particles to stick to the soul. The second is, since you've already stopped ashraf, now you are shedding off the already accumulated particle so that your soul becomes completely free. Liberation is attained when one follows the three jewel path, or called the Triratna. So Triratna basically is right knowledge, right faith, and right conduct. KFC, I say. Right knowledge is the knowledge of Keval Gyan. Right faith is the attitude of respect towards truth, or Shraddha towards truth. And right conduct is through Panchamahavat, Panchamahavratas. Right, so Panchamahavratas are basically, first is Brahmacharya, second is Aparigrah, Asteyam, Ahimsa, and Satyam. So Brahmacharya basically is abstinence from self-indulgence. Aparigraha is abstinence from all kinds of attachment. Asteyam is abstinence from stealing. Ahimsa is abstinence from all injury to all kinds of life. And Satyam is abstinence from falsehood. So these are the Panch Maha Vratas. So being free from the obstacles of matter, the soul eventually realizes its inherent potential and attains the fourfold perfection which it already had, the Ananta Chatushtya. So coming to Jaina's view on God, as we have read earlier, Jainas is a atheist or non-theistic school. So they rejected God basically. So what was their rationale behind rejecting God? So first is closer to Charvakas. They say that since it cannot be perceived, the God cannot be perceived, but sought to be proved by inference, which is somehow flawed. According to Jainas, they say that monotheists hold that God should be one, since if there are more than one God, harmony could not be established. However, according to Jainas, even ants and bees can work in harmony. So what is the need for God then? Jainas also reject the qualities of perfection such as omniscience, omnipotence, etc. If God were omnipotent, he would be the cause of all things, but practical things such as houses, pots, are not caused by God himself. There's also a Nyaya view which says that every product is a work of an agent. So hence this world is a work of the supreme agent, which is God. But according to Jainas, who contradict this Nyaya view by saying that if world is a product and products are worked on by agents, by their limbs, like the potter works on the pot with his hands. So God, being formless, cannot be an agent himself. He cannot himself convert materials or matter into reality. This is what the argument is presented by Jainas. So this is about Jainas. In conclusion, we can say that the Jaina philosophy is it has a very tolerant and accommodative approach in terms of accepting the theory of manyness of reality. It is basically insisting that every judgment is partial and conditional. They do not deny truth. It only prevents any single perspective from claiming absolute truth. So it makes it remarkably relevant even today, that because they're not just sticking to just one single perspective, because reality has many facets, and what might look as 6 to you might be 9 for somebody else's. This is what the common sensical perspective of versions of reality is, and this fits well with the Jaina's approach. So that was it about Jainism. Thank you.